Until very recently, developers building AI tools operated in a borderless ecosystem. You could build a software platform, plug in an API from a major language model provider, and everything just worked. Different companies, different tools, all talking to each other. Then, engineers at XAI logged in and found a stark notification waiting for them. It read, "Claude model in Cursor is no longer responding. Anthropic has blocked our access." Anthropic saw a direct competitor using their proprietary model to write code and build out technical capabilities. From their perspective, letting XAI engineers use Claude was effectively subsidizing a rival's research and development. Cutting off that access broke the open supply chain. The block hit XAI, but it also targeted developers using Cursor, a hugely popular coding interface that relied heavily on Anthropic's models to function. Overnight, Cursor found itself cut off from its primary engine, forcing a massive, immediate test of its own engineering limits. Cursor didn't spend time negotiating terms or building a temporary patch. They went completely quiet for exactly 14 days. When they broke the silence, they released Composer 2, a proprietary programming model built entirely in-house. This chart shows the results on Terminal Bench 2.0, an industry-standard test for complex programming tasks. Cursor's Composer 2 scored 61.7%, Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.6 scored 58.0%, and Cursor's previous version only hit 47.9%. They built a stronger coding model in 2 weeks. And look at the pricing overlay. Composer 2 costs 50 cents per million input tokens, roughly 1/10 the cost of Claude Opus 4.6. Cursor was originally one of Anthropic's largest distribution channels, funneling user fees back to them. By revoking access, Anthropic forced their best customer to replace them entirely with a cheaper, more capable alternative. Corporate history is littered with companies trying to starve their rivals by cutting off resources. The usual result is that the target realizes they can build the resource themselves. In 2005, Google blocked DoubleClick from working with competitors. A small company named Overture responded by aggressively building its own advertising placement system. Overture eventually became Yahoo, creating a massive advertising network. In 2011, Apple decided it no longer wanted to send valuable user data to a rival. They removed Google Maps as the default navigation app on the iPhone. Google responded by pouring resources into a standalone app, solidifying its place as the undisputed standard for navigation. Meanwhile, Apple had to release its own map software before it was fully baked, resulting in a famously rough launch that took years to fix. When you cut off a competitor's access, you give them a clear objective and a tight deadline. You stress test their engineering teams. If they survive the test, they emerge with a product you can no longer control. Returning to the AI fallout, other players moved immediately to capitalize on the chaos. Within 48 hours of the Anthropic blockade, OpenAI stepped in and partnered with OpenCode, slotting their own codex models into the exact spaces Anthropic had vacated. The engineers at XAI who originally received the block notification, their leadership stated publicly that losing Claude simply forced them to accelerate their own in-house coding models. Look at the board after 2 weeks. Cursor has its own superior model. OpenAI secured a new developer pipeline. XAI is building its own tools. Anthropic protected its top-tier client quotas, but gave up a massive footprint in the developer community to do it. This 2-week window killed the API wrapper. You can no longer build a reliable business by just designing a sleek user interface and piping in someone else's intelligence on the back end. To survive, software companies now have to train models for their specific vertical. If you build a coding app, you need to own a coding model. As a user, you have to look under the hood. You need to know exactly whose engine is powering your favorite app, because if a corporate dispute cuts the connection, your workflow breaks with it. The open era of AI development is closing. The market is fracturing into heavily fortified, vertically integrated systems, where everyone builds their own stack from the ground up. This dynamic extends far past AI. Whether you are running a multinational tech firm or managing your own career, relying entirely on a single external platform leaves you completely exposed. Renting access is not a strategy. Waiting for permissions or relying on an open API means your most critical tools can be turned off by a stranger in a boardroom. Real security requires owning the mechanisms you rely on most. When you control the foundation of your work, a blockade from a rival doesn't shut you down. It just proves you never needed them to begin with.